Welcome to a splice of life science marketing, your go-to show for life science marketing professionals in biotech, medtech, and diagnostics. Join us for sharp, strategic conversations that turn cutting-edge insights into real-world marketing advantage. I'm Matt Wilkinson.
And I'm Jasmine Gruia-Gray. In each episode, we'll cut through the hype and complexity with practical plays you can use to earn trust, stand out in crowded categories, and convert attention into momentum.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Jasmine. How you doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Yeah, really excited to be covering these two stories today.
Yeah, me as well. So let's kick it off. So on January 20th, we did a thing. That thing is we ran a webinar with Sanj Kumar, the CEO of ELRIG, and unpacked what the data from our survey of exhibitors at ELRIG Drug Discovery 2025, a festival of life science, means and what teams can do about it before their next exhibit at a conference. The survey exposed a preparation gap that runs deeper than missing battle cards. Nearly half of the exhibitors default to the product-focused booth messaging, describing features and specs rather than outcomes and pain points. Meanwhile, the tactics that actually drive post-event action are expert consultations, 44%, and live demos at 30%, both of which require preparation that most teams haven't done. The webinar introduced the STAR or STAR framework for battle card creation, proposed AI-assisted prep as a shortcut to a first draft, which I often do, I know you do as well, and made the case for putting a marketer back in the booth for a real-time intelligence gathering. The commercial stakes are straightforward. Conference budgets are significant, and the ROI calculation depends entirely on what happens before and during the event, not on badge scans or footfalls. The preparation gap isn't a skills problem, it's a prioritization one. So, Matt, where are you landing on this?
So when we look at the levels of AI adoption and sort of some of these commercial challenges that we see across teams, I really feel that one of the biggest opportunities that life science tools and life science service companies really have is they've got the ability to use AI to overcome that preparation gap and also to help them with the prioritization. That 86% figure of people not really having battle cards, it's a preparation access problem. It's not a capability problem at all. Most teams know they should have battle cards somewhere. They don't build them because the blank page problem is real. Competitive research is slow. Positioning takes consensus. And the deadline is always the travel day. And often people have got so many competing priorities that they're only making sure that they turn up and they prep once they're there. AI collapses the activation barrier for trying to get to a good enough answer from maybe days and hours of meetings, down to just minutes. Now, the prompt framework that we actually provide in the article, which can be found in our Driven Thinking section on the website, provides a prompt framework that produces sort of structurally sound first draft in a single pass. Perfect, it never will be, but the better the information that you provide, the better that it's going to be. But it really does give you an architecture that a marketing team would normally spend days assembling and you can get done in minutes. So I really feel that makes the argument much, much stronger for adopting AI. How about you, Jasmine?
So I see it slightly differently. I worry that with adopting AI, you run the risk of losing the humane side of things, the authenticity side of things. AI is great at optimization. It's great for polishing, but that sort of real world lived experience, I worry, will get diluted out with AI. In the webinar, you gave this great example when you were working on a project with Artel and you did the pipe petting Olympics. I thought that was brilliant. It was a great competitor countermeasure, if you will. And it was purely human, purely authentic. It was a great opportunity to listen to what people were saying as they were going through the Olympics.
I think that the challenge here, and I understand where you're coming from with that concern about sort of AI diluting the authenticity and the humanness of our messaging. But I think that if we turn it round and say, hey, look, here's a lot of competitor information off of a website. If I'm going to go into it and I'm unprepared, then I've got no idea how our offers align against somebody else's. But if I've gone in and I've done that research and I've got AI to help me distill it down, then at the very least, I know what I'm up against. And I think that then that allows you to have a much sounder foundation upon which you can then build that humanness and really focus in on paying attention to the human that's in front of you and then taking notes to understand how do we actually go to make sure that conversation wasn't just a nice conversation, but it was meaningful to both of us. And that meaning lasts beyond just the 2 or 3 minutes that we're at the booth together, but that actually allows us to continue the conversation afterwards.
Yeah, I guess where I'm concerned is the difference between preparation and using AI as a crutch. And that's where you lose your authenticity. People stop listening to what the person in front of them is saying because they've prepared their battle card. It's all in front of them. It's ingrained in them. And they don't really take the time to probe a little deeper with the person in front of them. They just sort of go directly into that AI prepared spiel.
That could be exactly the same as going into an exhibition and having been given scripts for the booth. This is what I have to say about this. Or what so many people do is to default to talking about the technical specifications that may or may not make their product or service different. So I think it's a valid concern, but I think that focuses more on booth training and how to make sure that anybody in a commercial team, when they're dealing with customers, is spending at least twice as much time listening to their customers and the people they're speaking to as they are speaking. After all, there is that famous saying that we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a good reason. And I think that holds especially true in any conversation that we're having with prospects and customers.
Yeah, I think that's fair, that listening skills should be sharpened. I think that using the word clarification is super important to help you get a little bit deeper understanding on the pain points, on what the person in front of you likes about the product they're already using or dislikes about the product they're already using, to help them then connect the dots between what they heard and what preparation they did with AI. I think that's where it becomes a great hand in glove situation.
And I think that that's something that we can agree on here, is that we're using AI to optimize to really get to the point where we've got a really strong foundation so that we can then spend time really focusing on what the customers are saying. And I don't think that we should be looking at AI as a band-aid that fixes every problem. I think we need to be looking at how do we make sure that our customers and our prospects get the most out of those interactions. And a lot of that is by giving them the respect of understanding that they have other options out there. And it's our job not just to understand our portfolio, but to understand the context in which that portfolio sits, so that actually we might be able to recommend that a competitor's offer is better for a particular challenge. Now, hopefully, our offer is better across a whole range of things so that we're the obvious choice to go to. But we actually need to be about saying competitor A is actually going to beat us. You don't want to switch because of these things. And I think that's really important, because there's nothing in this age of AI worse than bad reviews online. And so we really don't want to be trying to sell people on false promises. I think that's one of the things that sort of AI search and the ability to build your own buying guides using AI is really going to bring to the forefront.
Yeah. Maybe we need to create a new word here, some mashup between authenticity and accelerator and acceleranicity or something. But the word I really like here is launchpad. I think that if you consider AI for prep work as that launch pad into the conversation, You really can't go wrong. The preparation gap is real, and absolutely AI can help to close it. But the authenticity gap opens that moment where the card becomes the script rather than the starting point. So it's that combination of using AI for prep, but then using your listening skills and the clarification language to get beyond that script.
And I think that's a really nice way to wrap that piece up. Next up, we have an article that you wrote about on a total available market and how most teams are confusing market size with market opportunity. And this is something that's really interesting and probably a mistake I've made many times before realizing it. In that article, you say that many companies present competitive revenue proving shall we say, a $50 million dollar market exists. And then somebody will say, well, why will anyone switch to us? And all of a sudden, your total available market suddenly means nothing. If a competitor sold 2,000 qPCR kits at 850 USD each, that would turn into a 1.7 million USD in real revenue. So we know the market exists. But if you target the same pain points with incremental improvements, you're fighting for a share in an established category. The team that identified a 15 million USD segment with acute unmet needs gets funded because they answer 3 questions. What pain do we solve that the competition ignores? What economic benefit justifies switching? And which beachhead has pain acute enough to drive adoption? Executives fund differentiated value in defensible segments, not market size without capture strategy. So I'm really curious about this, Jasmine. Why do most product managers walk into portfolio reviews with TAM models that prove market size but can't answer the capture question? And what does that tell us about how we're teaching market sizing?
I think this is a really important question. What I found happens most often is that we teach the product managers to build the TAM models using bottom up. No problem. Lab counts, publication trends, competitor revenue triangulation, all good. They get really good at those mechanics, filtering to relevant labs, tracking methodology adoption, estimation, competitor unit sales, all that. Then they walk in to portfolio reviews and present the addressable market is, let's say, $50 million and growing at 12% annually. And they get stumped when the exec says, why will anyone switch from their current solution to ours? Fair question. And often the product manager hasn't prepared for that kind of debate. And the model isn't created in such a way where they can point to a part of the model and say, well, here are the numbers that I factored in to address that question. The gap is that market sizing became a forecasting exercise. And I've done that personally myself, and I've seen lots of product managers do that instead of a capture strategy. What I mean is we're training product managers to prove the market exists, not prove they can win meaningfully in the market and win meaningful share in those markets. That's ultimately what it's all about. And the fix really starts with reframing what TAM analysis is for. It's not predicting revenue. It's building the evidence base that answers 3 executive objections. What pain do we uniquely solve? What economic benefit justifies switching? And which beachhead proves both? Competitive revenue shows the market is real, all good, but the pain point differentiation shows you can capture it. And that ends up being what's most important and what the executive wants to hear.
From a practical perspective, are you able to walk us through how pain point differentiation prevents the flow cytometry reagent problem, as you call it, where conservative TAM analysis kills a viable product that actually had a 60 million USD market?
So the flow cytometry example with flow cytometry agents got killed because the product manager led with the conservative TAM. Let's say $25 million. If I'm an exec listening to that, to me, that says not really worth it, especially if you compare to other projects that were approved at the 50 million or higher TAM. The actual market turned out to be $60 million. The product was viable, but the analysis failed. The pain point differentiation prevents this. Instead of leading with the total market size, lead with the beachhead intensity. Translational research cores running at 20 plus samples a day face a bottleneck. Current reagents require 4 hours hands-on time. Hours reduces that to 45 minutes. Whoa, that's a significant differentiation, delivering $12,000 annual cost savings per lab. Now you're speaking money, but you're also speaking time, and those are things that core facilities do understand. You're not asking execs to bet on your forecast. You're showing the acute pain, quantified benefit, and a problem competitors ignore. The TAM becomes supporting evidence. Our beachhead becomes the core message. And at 30% penetration for $8,000 at annual average sales price, that's a $4.3 million year one revenue. Adjacent segments expand to 25 million plus, but we're funding beachhead domination that proves expansion. So it's basically flipping the story on its head, where you're starting with the differentiation, you're starting with the beachhead and the pain point, and ending with the total available market.
That's such a shift. So in terms of sort of product managers, what shifts when they stop treating market sizing as a forecasting exercise and start treating it as an objection handling framework for portfolio review?
Yeah, so here's what changes. Instead of building a TAM model projecting revenue 3 years out, you build a defense answering questions you know are coming. The old approach, for example, is based on lab counts and adoption curves. We'll capture 15% share by year 3, generating $7.5 million. The exec asks, what if adoption is half that? You don't have an answer in this old scenario. In the new approach, you walk in with evidence for 3 objections. Why will customers switch? The proof: research cores run 20 plus samples, lose 4 hours daily. We cut that to 45 minutes, delivering $12,000 annual savings, validated with 8 sites. That's bringing your voice of the customer and actual ethnographic research right into the TAM discussion. Is the market real? Competitors sold 2,000 units at $850 each, proving $1.7 million revenue. Why this beachhead? These 180 labs have most acute pain. They become references for pharma. You're not predicting what will happen. You're proving what behavior you've observed through your voice of the customer and which segment responds strongest.
Oh, that's really interesting. So what you're telling me is that market sizing isn't about predicting the future, but about building evidence that answers those 3 questions that executives always ask. What pain do you solve that competitors ignore? What economic benefit justifies the switch, and which beachhead segment proves it? Curious to sort of hear how you'd summarize it.
Yes, those are the 3 questions that every product manager needs to prepare for in this TAM discussion. The productive tension between competitive revenue triangulation and pain point differentiation never fully resolves. You need both. But when you walk into portfolio reviews, lead with that story that proves you can capture meaningful share in a focused segment, then expand from strength, right? That voice of customer strength is irreplaceable. And it comes back to what we were talking about at the beginning with conferences, those listening skills and the challenging skills and clarification skills are so important. And you can bring all of that back in the story when you talk about TAM. Start with one beachhead where customer pain is acute enough to drive adoption. Build your TAM defense around that intensity, not the total market size.
Well, thank you so much. I've certainly learned a lot about how to avoid that challenge in future, and I hope our listeners have as well. Thank you for a great article, Jasmine. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Matt. Looking forward to our next discussion soon.
Me too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to A Splice of Life Science Marketing. We hope you enjoyed the episode.
If this conversation helped you, the single biggest way you can support the show is to subscribe and leave a review on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. We'd really appreciate it, and it makes a huge difference.
You can find out more about us and the topics we discuss at striven.com or on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for listening. We hope to see you next time.